How's it going, everybody? Gaurav, Bhatt and Mihir Vasavda here. You're listening to the Express Sports Podcast and it's game time. Last week was my first cinema outing since April 2019 when I saw Avengers Endgame 3 times. I watched Saina, the biopic on India's greatest shuttler, starring Parineeti Chopra as the titular character. The movie charts Saina's rise from a young girl wanting to play badminton to the world number one, only the second Indian after Prakash Padukone. अब ये मैं कोई मजे के लिए फर्स्ट डे फर्स्ट शो देखने नहीं गया था कि अखबार के लिए आई रोट अ पीस लुकिंग एट द मूवी थ्रू द आईज ऑफ अ स्पोर्ट्स जर्नलिस्ट बट हियर्स द बेस्ट पार्ट आई कुड हैव टोल्ड यू एग्जैक्टली हाउ द मूवी वुड प्ले आउट द स्टोरी बीट्स ऑल द ट्रायल्स एंड ट्रिब्युलेशंस द क्लाइमैक्स. In fact, one of my colleagues, another sports journalist, asked me movie कैसी लगी and I told them just close your eyes, imagine you're watching a Bollywood biopic on Saina Nehwal and it's exactly that. Now, why is this? इतने फॉर्मूला क्यों हैं हमारे यहाँ के स्पोर्टिंग बायोपिक्स और हैं भी या सिर्फ मुझे लगते हैं? मैंने सोचा क्यों ना आज ये डिस्कस किया जाए मिहिर वसावड़ा के साथ, a deep dive into India sporting biopics. Mihir, first of all, do you agree with my assessment कि इंडियन स्पोर्टिंग बायोपिक्स काफी फॉर्मुलाइक और काफी ऑब्वियसली पता रहता है कि क्या होने वाला है, या तुम्हारे कुछ और विचार हैं इस पे?
नहीं यार, ऑफ कोर्स मतलब दे आर क्वाइट फॉर्मुलाइक एंड टू सच एन एक्सटेंट कि जब भी अगर जो कोई करियर का देयर इज नॉट अ वेरी हैप्पी एंडिंग तो उसे भी ट्विस्ट करके हैप्पी एंडिंग दिया जाता है कई बारी. तो आई थिंक दैट्स वेयर वी लैक एंड वी जस्ट लूज दैट होल सेंस ऑफ रियलिज्म इन दीज काइंड ऑफ मूवीज. एंड आई हैव नॉट सीन साइना येट. आई डू वांट टू वॉच साइना बिकॉज शी इज वन ऑफ माय फेवरेट एथलीट्स. बट मुझे कभी कभी यही डर लगता है कि यार मतलब जो साइना व्हाट वी हैव फॉलोड ओवर द लास्ट 12-14 years उसे इन अ स्पैन ऑफ 2 hours इन अ मूवी कैसे पूरा करियर को उन लोग ने रैप अप किया रहेगा. आई एम जस्ट स्कैर्ड टू सी दैट.
अब इसमें सबसे इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट जो मुझे लगता है जो तूने अभी बोला है, बिकॉज वी हैव फॉलोड दैट ट्रेजेक्टरी एंड दैट करियर पाथ, बट मे बी द इंडियन ऑडियंस हु आर नॉट दैट फेमिलियर विद साइनाज एक्सप्लॉइट्स ऑन द कोर्ट, जिन्होंने उतनी क्लोजली नहीं फॉलो किया है कि क्या क्या मुश्किलें रही हैं, क्या क्या व्हाट हैव बीन द हाइज, व्हाट हैव बीन द लोज, उन लोगों को बहुत ज्यादा अपीलिंग लगती होंगी ऐसी बायोपिक्स. उन लोगों में से एक है हमारे प्रोड्यूसर शशांक भार्गवा, और हमने सोचा कि यार बाद में इनकी राय पूछने से के बजाय हम स्टार्टिंग में ही इन्हें ले आते हैं, बिकॉज ही डिजर्व्स अ परमवीर चक्र ऑफ ब्रेवरी, बिकॉज ये पॉडकास्ट रिकॉर्डिंग से थोड़ी देर पहले ही भाग के साइना देख कर आए हैं. तो मे बी ही एंड आई कैन टॉक टू यू गाइज अबाउट व्हाट द मूवी इज एंड या व्हाट आर द पिटफॉल्स दैट इट फॉल्स इनटू. शशांक.
I mean, you're right when you say that it is formulaic. I didn't know much about Saina's rise, but the movie makes it seem that Saina's rise was as cliched as it can get, you know. The formula is very clear. You have an ambitious parent making the child work hard. The child rises through the ranks. Then eventually she has to change a coach. Coach के साथ ego clashes होते हैं. And then eventually, you know, the movie... beach mein the winning gets to your head and then you have one final match. Isn't like... That can be the most generic sports biopic ever, right? Mihir, isn't that how you would imagine a sports biopic?
Absolutely, but one thing that I think you missed there is when you mentioned the coach, हमारे यहाँ पर हमेशा एक ही twist आते थे. The coach is always the villain, if not always, in most cases. So I don't know how they've portrayed Gopi or Vimal sir in this movie, but आप कोई भी मूवी ले लो इंडियन स्पोर्ट्स मूवीज, से फॉर एग्जाम्पल दंगल में जो कोच बताया है गीता फोगट का वाइल द मैच इज गोइंग ऑन, वो कोच जाके महावीर फोगट जो गीता फोगट के फादर है उन्हें एक कमरे में बंद कर देते हैं. नाउ आई हैड गॉन टू वॉच दैट मूवी विथ माई पेरेंट्स हु डिडंट नो एनीथिंग अबाउट गीता फोगट्स लाइफ, सो आई एम अज्यूमिंग if that's the sample size, people around me also were kind of reacting to every scene with surprise. So, wo sample size mein I'm assuming people didn't know the real story behind Fogarts and the coach. That ending actually portrayed Geeta Fogart's coach at the Commonwealth Games in such a negative light कि मतलब वो खराबी आदमी एकदम, उसे जाके मार दो बस, इतना ही बाकी था. जबकि in real life the coach P.S. Sondhi, Pyara Singh Sondhi, he is such a soft-spoken gentleman. He's a darling in that sense. He's a very well-mannered person, brilliant coach, understands the game, understands people. And उसे एकदम ही आपने opposite light में portray किया. And it so happened that Sondhi sir, who is with the Air Force, he got perturbed जब ये मूवी आ गई कि यार बॉस क्या हो रहा है, मुझे क्यों ऐसे दिखा रहे हैं ये लोग, why am I being portrayed in such a negative light? And then he made statements which then forced the filmmakers to kind of have a settlement, private settlement with the coach, and मामला वहीं रफा दफा हो गया. But that is one negative about having these formulas where you have one good person that will be most probably be your parent who will always push you. You'll have one villain, most probably be a coach who will try to create problems for you, and then you rise through that.
In this case, instead of Gopi Chand, the coach that the movie shows is Coach Ranjan. And I don't think he's the villain, but he's definitely shown as somebody who, at least at some point, didn't really believe in Saina, or who was this really strict person running this coaching institute ki, it's my way or the highway, and ek rule toda to, bahar nikal denge and all that. Right, Gaurav?
Absolutely. Firstly, Coach Rajan, not Coach Ranjan.
Oh, sorry,
Rajan. That's the entire bit, and that kind of drives the point home also कि why can't it simply be Gopi Chand? It's Gopi Chand, right? अभी आप राजन बोलो, रंजन बोलो या रंजन बोलो या कुछ भी बोलिए, that is not Gopi Chand. When Saina is ushered to this person's academy, this great shuttler's academy, बोला जाता है कि यार if you want to be a world beater, आपको इन्हीं के पास जाना होगा. But we're never told why. Like we don't know क्या credentials हैं. When say कोई parent है जो अपने बच्चे को जो है गोपीचंद अकेडमी में भेजना चाहेगा, you have this whole list of credentials कि आपको पता है ये actually में क्यों है जो world beater बना सकता है. But here's simply somebody called Rajan in an academy as uncreatively called Rajan's Academy. Random trophies हैं वहां पे, but हमें पता नहीं है क्या trophies हैं. There's a very nice scene. It's one of the quieter moments in the film, and luckily one of the rarer scenes where Parineeti Chopra is not present. Nothing against her, but it gets a little jarring. It gets a little Salman Khan like when the one star in your movie is in every frame. Where this quote-unquote Coach Rajan is speaking to his wife, and his wife sort of says कि यार ये सब advertisers, ये सारे brands आपके पीछे भी भाग रहे थे, but you turned them down. Again, we are never told कि क्यों भाग रहे थे, कि इन्होंने ऑल इंग्लैंड जीता हुआ है या ये इतने टॉप लेवल के बैडमिंटन कोच थे. तो वी नेवर एग्जैक्टली नो व्हाट हिज ड्राइव इज. व्हाई फर्स्टली ही इज वेरी एप्रीहेंसिव इन सेंडिंग साइना टू दीज सीनियर टूर्नामेंट्स कि यार चलो ठीक है, चले जाओ, पहले राउंड में जीत गई तो ठीक है, हो जाएगा. सडनली ही इज बीइंग दिस रेजिस्टिंग फोर्स, इवन दो मिहिर ही इज नॉट दैट क्लीशेड विलेनस कोच, जो कि दंगल काफी हद तक बहुत बड़ा एक स्लाइड था अगेंस्ट दंगल एंड अगेंस्ट द रियल लाइफ कोच ऑल्सो. यहाँ पे ऐसा सीन नहीं है, बट वी नेवर टोल्ड कि दिस इज गोपी चंद या इवन विमल कुमार हु इज जीवन कुमार इन दिस फिल्म. हिज इंट्रोडक्शन इज एब्सोल्युटली cringeworthy. He comes on and he's rhyming like Jack and Jill or something. He's jumping up and down. It's clear that this is a film by Amol Gupte, who was the pseudo director of Tare Zameen Par, और वो bum bum बोले वाला scene, because it's exactly like that. This guy is trying to be an Amir Khan proxy. And he's jumping and dancing and trying to coax Saina Nehwal ki nahi aap isi academy mein, this is the academy for you. And he goes on this very off-brand Eminem type rap ki matlab aap kyun is academy mein, and that is completely against what Vimal Kumar is, who's such a soft-spoken, such a cerebral coach. And to not portray Gopi Chand in all its accuracy is one thing, because Gopi Chand kya aap hazaron interviews, hazaron pieces पढ़ सकते हैं, but somebody like Vimal Kumar, who's one of the great calling cards for him was how he helped Saina resuscitate her career and bounce back after disappointment and injuries. It does thoda sa injustice to somebody like Vimal Kumar, yaar.
I have a question for both of you, actually. We can argue over these little points जो मतलब कैसे characters portray किए जाते हैं, उनके क्या नाम रखे, उनका characterization कैसा है. Of course, there will be many views about that. But I'm very interested to know the sport bit. How has that been shot and filmed over here? Like, is Badminton what they've shown, is it good to pass off as a sports movie?
Shashank, you take this one first.
So, okay, one personal bit is that I've recently started playing badminton. बचपन में कॉलोनी में तो सबने खेला है, which by the way the movie calls out. Very early on, there's this scene where a coach is talking to a bunch of kids and he says that कॉलोनी में outdoor टक टक करके खेलना बैडमिंटन नहीं होता है. Badminton is an indoor sport. So that I've only just started playing. And that's one of the reasons I guess I was also slightly interested in the film to begin with. And although I didn't have any high expectations from the film, I thought maybe I'll get to know more about the sport. And I honestly didn't. I didn't learn कि what does it take, क्या techniques learn करनी होती हैं एक international level के player को to succeed. It was like the way they describe the things that one requires is so generic. It could be applied to any sport, you know, focus, agility, strength, stamina. I mean, you know, these are just, you could, I don't know, somebody opened a thesaurus. And there are these cliched lines like, ताज महल एक रात में नहीं बनता, and rhythm टूटा तो confidence टूटा. You know, so I didn't learn much about the sport, to be honest.
Well, ताजमहल एक रात में नहीं बना, वो तो काफी क्लीशे भी नहीं है, वो तो मतलब काफी गंदा सा कवर अप है फॉर रोम वाज नॉट बिल्ट इन अ डे, बट वेल चलो मैनेज कर लेंगे उससे.
एग्जैक्टली शशांक का पॉइंट जो है, एक लाइन से मैं सम अप करूंगा कि यार स्किल्स या बैडमिंटन के बारे में अगर आप जानना चाहते हैं, मेरे एक टर्शरी लेवल पे भी इवन फ्रॉम दंगल कुछ ना कुछ था वहां से लेने के लिए, रेसलिंग के हिसाब से कि ठीक है मैट पे क्या है और दंगल अखाड़े में क्या है. आप कोई भी बायोपिक उठाएं, कम से कम एक बीट रहता है फिल्म का जो कि कोई स्पेसिफिक स्किल है, जो कि हमारा मेन कैरेक्टर उस पे ही कीप्स फॉल्टरिंग, बट देन सडनली इन द क्लाइमैक्स ही रियलाइजेस कि ओह शिट आई कैन डू दिस नाउ. साइना में जो बैडमिंटन का स्किल सबसे ज्यादा बताने वाली लाइन है वो एक है कि शी इज स्ट्रगलिंग इन अ मैच एंड देन सडनली इट क्लिक्स फॉर हर की डिसेप्शन, कहीं पे निगाहें कहीं पे निशाना, एंड देन दैट्स सपोज टू पोर्ट्रे कि यार आप कुछ दिखाओ सेटअप और फिर स्मैश कहीं मारो. एंड अनफॉर्चुनेटली लाइक आई सेड फर्स्ट डे फर्स्ट शो था तो आई वाज नॉट एबल टू गेज ऑडियंस का रिएक्शन कैसा रहता, बट आई डोंट एक्सपेक्ट देम टू जंप आउट ऑफ देयर सीट्स एंड सडनली गो यस एग्जैक्टली, या खुदा ये तो सीधा मारेगी लेवल का डिस्कोर्स था बैडमिंटन का. ऑन कोर्ट even Parineeti, and again we're not film critics and I haven't followed her filmography before, but she's not convincing as Saina Nehwal, Mihir. And again मैं जानता हूं इस पे हम लोग वो लेंस लेकर आ रहे हैं एक स्पोर्ट्स जर्नलिस्ट का जिसने पर्सनली देखा हुआ है बहुत पास की सीट से साइना को इन एक्शन, टीवी पे पता नहीं कितने आवर्स हम लोगों ने क्यूमुलेटिव देखे होंगे हर इन एक्शन, बट यू नॉट, जब आपके पैर अगर घुटने से ऊपर ही नहीं उठ पा रहा, दैट स्मैश डजंट कम अक्रॉस एज कन्विंसिंग.
और ये काफी इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है गौरव, बिकॉज फॉर अगेन डिस्क्लेमर हम बार बार ये देते रहेंगे बिकॉज वी आर रिव्यूइंग दिस मूवी फ्रॉम अ स्पोर्ट्स जर्नलिस्ट का प्रिज्म एंड हम क्रिटिक्स नहीं है, राइट. बट हमने जो साइना नेहवाल को जितना देखा है खेलते हुए, व्हाट वी हैव सीन ऑफ हर इज शी इज एट अ पीक, शी वाज एन इनक्रेडिबल एथलीट, राइट. मतलब अगर जो आप उससे लंबी मैचेस खेलो देन साइना विल पुल ऑफ दोज मैचेस. उसका जो एक ड्रिवन पर्सनैलिटी है, दैट स्टबर्न नेचर ऑफ हर्स, वो जो एक है, ये सारी चीजें, आई मीन इट जस्ट, वी शुडंट फॉरगेट दैट साइना नेहवाल इज वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट इंडियन एथलीट्स जो एट अ कंसिस्टेंट लेवल, राइट, ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ 10 years उसने टॉप लेवल बैडमिंटन पे कंट्रोल किया हुआ था. लाइक अभी शी इज ड्रिफ्टिंग अवे थोड़ा सा, but this is what her 14th year or 15th year at top level badminton, which is not easy. तो उसकी जो longevity है, that is also a testimony to her fitness. काफी कम एथलीट्स है जो इतना at top sustain कर पाए. पर ये जो उसके character traits हैं, have these been reflected in the movie?
Absolutely not, yeah. In fact, while you were saying all this, I was just visualizing a Saina biopic where it's just real life footage of Saina Nehwal's matches. Just that electric, that acrobatic self की यहाँ वहाँ, and those long grueling rallies, यार mesmerizing. आप लोग टेनिस में भी हम बोलते हैं ठीक है लेफ्ट राइट गर्दन, बट बैडमिंटन रैलीज का एक अलग ही खेल है, मतलब बिल्कुल अलग है. एंड there wasn't like one single rally sequence in the entire film. एक मेरे को रैली देखने को नहीं मिला. And the thing is कि the actor portraying Parupalli Kashyap, Saina's teammate turned husband, he is played by Ehsan Naqvi, who's a 3-time Maharashtra state champion. So even when they're doing double drills, that guy has this abnormally long hang time, यार वो 5 फुट ऊपर उड़ के स्मैश मार रहा है. And there's Parineeti in slow motion, but the movie is not in slow motion, it's just action that is in slow motion. और पीछे background में, you know, these are badminton trainees, so it gets very jarring as far as play style is concerned. But that very physical bit about badminton, that doesn't come across as much. ठीक है, एक चीज मैं क्रेडिट देना चाहूंगा मूवी को, एंड शशांक ने भी अलूड किया उसको, कि बैडमिंटन वो स्पोर्ट नहीं है, वो गेम नहीं है जो आप कॉलोनी में नीचे खेलते हैं. द बेस्ट थिंग दैट दिस मूवी डज, एंड दैट वाज द ओपनिंग लाइन फॉर माय रिव्यू एज वेल, कि इट गेट्स द ढल गया दिन, इट गेट्स इट आउट ऑफ द वे सो सून कि बॉस एटलीस्ट बॉलीवुड में, एटलीस्ट बैडमिंटन एंड फिल्म, दिस इज ऑन अनदर लेवल. ये वो नहीं है कि आपकी एक शॉट के बाद में आप पूरा जंपिंग जैक जीतू एक पूरा ट्विस्टिंग एक स्टैंजा गा सकता है, उसके बाद शटल वापस आ रही है. इधर में इट्स शोन फिजिकल की बहुत फिजिकल है, इंजरीज हैपन, ब्लड स्वेट एंड टेयर्स आर ऑल देयर, जस्ट दैट द मेन कैरेक्टर isn't able to represent it perfectly.
Shashank, if you were to judge Saina Nehwal's character, her personality, simply by this movie, what would be your summation?
I was like, why is she acting so badly? that would be my summation. I couldn't see
acting or acting to be a player.
Acting to be a player, yeah. But my thing was that I couldn't picture Saina, to be honest. I was just seeing Parineeti, which is a comment on Parineeti's acting skills, like how well she could embody another character, and I don't think she was able to do that in my opinion. Where I could see that, like I could see that she's trying this Haryanvi character where she's like, मैं फाड़ दूंगी sir, मैं मार दूंगी, but you know, I don't buy that.
It was as convincing as Shashank delivering those dialogues, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, I think Shashank was a little more convincing Saina Nehwal than Parineeti right there.
But you know, it's sad because one of the, I don't know, his sports biopic kahan jayega. I don't know, Shashank, if you have seen, if Gaurav you've seen either, but the movie on Sachin, it is a nice template, I guess, for biopics like players like these. I mean, Sachin ka, they've not gone into recreating a new Sachin Tendulkar look-alike lekar uski movie banayi hai puri. Nahi, they've just gone through the footage that was archival and then they've weaved it through a narrative usme. So you get that proper ups and downs and up again wala feel in that movie. And it serves the purpose. I mean, it's a feel-good movie. आप 2 घंटे देखकर आपको time waste नहीं लगेगा and you'll be lost for those 2 hours. Which unfortunately we have to accept, we are very bad at sports movie making. So आप उससे अच्छा यही एक formula use कर लीजिए जहाँ पर आप archival footage use कर लो.
Yeah, I think that would be a better way to go about it. Better, of course, because a lot of biopics were going through my mind, like Azhar and Dhoni. Ek to I haven't watched. I haven't seen Azhar, but
you haven't?
Yeah,
you are missing out on epic movie.
Yeah, I was suspecting that. Yeah. But I read Sriram Veera's review on Azhar and how it's not exactly fair to his teammates. But you don't expect these movies to be fair to the teammates or whatever. यहाँ पे भी गोपीचंद क्यों नहीं है या पीवी सिंधु का एक passing में भी mention क्यों नहीं है? It's a movie called Saina. Of course, it's going to focus on Saina. Azhar is a movie called Azhar. But the thing about at least Dhoni that I saw was a very entertaining watch, and that brings me to another point here. Sporting biopic can be entertaining on 2 levels. It can be good on 2 levels. Ek to yaar, you can have a very accurate representation of an athlete like Pan Singh Tomar. Now that's a different pedigree altogether. It's Tigmanshu Dhulia and Irfan Khan coming together for a character not very well known. They're not in the collective psyche of Indian sports fans bhi kafi zyada. So that's one side of a thing. कि आप ऐसे एक इंटरेस्टिंग बायोपिक बना सकते हैं एक एथलीट का, या फिर यू गो ऑल आउट ऑन एंटरटेनमेंट लाइक चक दे इंडिया और MS धोनी की. चक दे इंडिया मिहिर कितना एक्यूरेट था एक्चुअली जिसकी वो लोग कोशिश कर रहे थे बायोपिक बनाने की.
यार उसका एक्यूरेसी, लाइक वी वर डिस्कसिंग बिफोर रिकॉर्डिंग दिस एपिसोड, उसकी एक्यूरेसी वहीं पर मार खा जाती है जब वी से दैट द मूवी इज बेस्ड ऑन द 2002 कॉमनवेल्थ गेम्स विनिंग इंडियन वुमेन्स टीम, एंड आप जब मूवी में दिखा रहे हो कि वो वर्ल्ड कप जीत जाते हैं, तो आपका अगर जो एक्यूरेसी लेवल इतना वहीं पर it gets. But check the India, they at least get the hockey right, the filming of hockey, the pace of match. More importantly, they get the styles of each country to the T. मतलब अगर जो अर्जेंटीना फिजिकल है तो मूवी में उन्होंने दिखाया कि वो फिजिकल है. If Australians are skillful, quick, then it's reflecting in the movie. If Indians at that point were lacking in skills, they have shown it in the movie. They haven't shown कि इंडिया में इंडियन प्लेयर्स सारे ध्यानचंद थे, तो they stuck to what the real life styles were, and I don't know why it is so hard to do that for others.
Yeah, there have been saving graces like those, but even in Dhoni, which is again all about Dhoni and it skirts all the controversies. या कुछ भी बेकार बंदे ने किया नहीं है. This Maidas kind of a figure who touches everything and turns it into gold. Dhoni, everything. But at least it had Sushant Singh Rajput trying his best to be Dhoni. And it wasn't just limited to his mannerisms or gait. That guy spent like a truckload of hours in the nets replicating those shots. एक तो होता है क्रिकेट खेलना, एक होता है धोनी की तरह क्रिकेट खेलना. just to put him out there, and he was facing deliveries or he is executing those shots. So that was a saving grace for Dhoni at least, which.
बट इसमें मैं एक ही चीज थोड़ा सा ये करूंगा कि क्रिकेट में व्हेन यू आर शूटिंग यू आर ऑलरेडी एट अ सर्टेन लेवल. आप क्रिकेट खेले हो, आपका हाथ ऑलरेडी उस पर साफ है, which is not true for many sports, and that is why I like Dangal a lot, because like Shashank, you mentioned takeaways about a sport कि आप sport के बारे में नया क्या सीख रहे हो in a movie. Dangal did a fabulous job with that. If you saw Dangal, then and if you have a good memory, then you will understand all wrestling bouts wherever you see them in future. So the sport is explained that well in that movie.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know Shashank को बोला है, but I'd like to jump in again. But yeah, I'm sure Sushant ने थोड़ा तो खेला ही था क्रिकेट, और हम सब ने भी क्रिकेट खेला कि it's easier for us to follow कि अच्छा वो नहीं, ये तो धोनी की तरह खेल रहा है. Might not be easier for us to accurately understand कि यार ये wrestling में जो दांव पेच है ये काफी realistic है ये वो. But उसमें भी मिहिर, when I went to Vinesh's and Mahavir's village in Charka Dadri, Vinesh just laughed it off, and I asked her कि if you've seen Dangal. She's like नहीं, बीच बीच में थोड़ी थोड़ी देखी आगे कर करके. She was being very polite, and then she lets it slip. यार जो मैंने आज तक की ट्रेनिंग में जो मैंने दाव नहीं मारे हैं वो दंगल में इतनी आसानी से लोग मार दे रहे हैं फाइनल में, खाली क्लाइमैक्स होना है तो even that is ratcheted up to 12. But Shashank, yeah, that's the thing. What if you've seen films like Dangal or Dhoni or even a Mary Kom, do you think तुम्हें उसमें कुछ ज्यादा समझ में आया है about the sport as opposed to Saina?
Yeah, I think, I mean, in movies like Chak De and Dangal, definitely. Dangal is a good example. Even I would say Bhag Milka Bhag, which again I didn't like. But उसमें भी running के बारे में, track के बारे में मुझे ज़्यादा पता चला versus Saina. Saina में मुझे कुछ ज़्यादा पता नहीं चला. Like I could go to a badminton court right now, watch people play and probably learn more than what I learned in this 2-hour long movie.
नहीं यार, I need to step in over here. And Gaurav, I'm sure you won't blame me why I'm jumping in. अगर जो movie देखनी है to understand the sport, then go no farther than Dangal, my friend.
Yes.
That is the only reason I was excited to do this podcast, because we could legitimately talk about Dandan Goal.
He can't speak, he's so excited. यार Dandan Goal is हम दोनों का मिला के काफी फेवरेट मूवी. अपना इंडियन मेसी एंड रोनाल्डो का पेयरिंग, जबरदस्त क्रॉसेस हैं, काफी ब्लेटेंट फाउल्स हैं जो कि नहीं देते, लोग कोमा में चले जाके उड़ जाते हैं.
चैलेंज है.
ओल्ड ट्रैफर्ड पे थिएटर ऑफ ड्रीम्स का टूर है, बहुत अच्छा. But yeah, that's one accurate, and it's not even a biopic. तो आप ये नहीं बोल सकते कि आप लोग ऐसी मूवीज का नाम ले रहे हैं कंपैरिजन में. वो भाई वो अलग ही चीज है, ठीक है.
हम अंडरस्टैंडिंग स्पोर्ट के बारे में बात करें. अगर जो आप वो मूवी देखोगे, देन यू विल अंडरस्टैंड कि हम फुटबॉल में क्यों सक करते हैं एज अ कंट्री. बट या, बैक टू सीरियस बिजनेस. गौरव.
I've lost my train of thought. I'm humming the title track in my mind, but in fact, even a movie like Mary Kom or Mihir, तुमने क्योंकि wrestling movies का mention किया है, I would like to bring in Mary Kom थोड़ा. That was a valiant effort. That wasn't totally accurate. Neither उसमें आपको sport के बारे में कितना पता चला होगा मुझे नहीं पता. And Mary Kom, who was doing this great publicity drive, and she was there with Priyanka Chopra everywhere कि यार ठीक है, I'm very proud कि ये play कर रही हैं, and mine is a story filled with hardships and such has been life. But recently, pre-COVID, जब मैं मैरी कॉम से मिला था, and we were talking about just not even for a story, but just talking about her life, childhood, खेती करके, जैसे एक बच्ची खेती करके कर रही थी, and then she would go out for boxing training, and suddenly she just says, "Priyanka करेगी इतना?" and I suddenly realized, yeah, that's a very valid point. But yeah, that was Shashank. That was a movie which came before things like whitewashing or ये सब became it really became talking points in our psyche also. काफी ज़्यादा point था कि why is Priyanka playing Mary Kom and the features are either prosthetic or VFX, why can't they portray some northeastern girl as Mary? But then again, that's a slippery slope. यार वो आप अगर देखने बैठे
No, I think it's super jarring. If it comes on TV sometimes, it's super jarring to see, and I find it really problematic. I don't think we're nitpicking too much here, but they really could have got somebody from that state, from that region to play Mary Kom. Priyanka Chopra doing it seems very off. Like I know we don't talk about it that way. Like in America, blackface is just, you won't do that, right? Or like you won't have like a Indian guy playing like a Chinese player, right? It's just
Oh, they
it's just
did that
weird.
in Social Network, right? They did that
they?
in Social Network with that character with the two brothers, the two twins. उसके साथ जो Indian character है
Yeah,
Divya something. He's a white guy who's just थोड़ा सा brown faced and shown in the movie, if I recollect it well.
Yeah, because in the movie he appears brown, like he seems from Indian origin or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. But in Maricom using prosthetics and everything, that just seems. I mean, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
that definitely seems off.
I understand that you have to sell the movie and Priyanka Chopra is a much bigger name, but यही narrative अभी बाहर भी थोड़ा सा बस्ट हो रहा है ना कि यार आप एमा स्टोन को हवाईयन बोल के नहीं चला सकते हैं just to sell a movie. आप actual वो native character भी ला सकते हैं, but again that is venturing into another territory जो कि पता नहीं कितने लोग गेम टाइम सुनने आते हैं हमारा इतना बारीकियों से वहां पे कास्टिंग क्या हो रही है देखने के लिए. बट बिफोर रैपिंग अप द एपिसोड, शशांक, मिहिर, मैं खुद भी ये बोलूंगा, ओवरसीज जो इंटरनेशनल बायोपिक्स हैं काफी सारी, काफी हॉलीवुड में एंड यूके बेस्ड स्पोर्टिंग बायोपिक्स, मिहिर एक तो तुम्हारी फेवरेट्स क्या है, शशांक तुम्हारी भी, एंड इन विच वेज डू दे डिफर फ्रॉम द प्लेथोरा ऑफ मूवीज दैट वी जस्ट मेंशन्ड?
So yeah, for me, I think one of the better sports biopics I have seen is Foxcatcher. It is about these two US Olympic wrestling champions. They were brothers, Mark Schultz and Dave Schultz, and their very, very eccentric sponsor come coach or whatever called John DuPont. It is a crazy real life story that happened in the 80s where, okay, I won't really go around talking about the plot, but what I like about that movie is they have stuck to wrestling so well. They've done wrestling so bloody well in that movie कि आप 2.5 घंटे 2 घंटे के लिए सिर्फ बारीकियां देख रहे हो wrestling की, and there are these long spells of silence where you just see two people wrestling and it's not like you're going भाई क्या हो रहा है, it's like you understand the sport very very minutely. And Dave Schultz is one of the legendary wrestlers from USA. It completely does justice to his achievements, also his brother's achievements. The good thing about that movie is, in real life, it does not have a happy ending, and the filmmakers do not fall for it. So the movie also ends on a very somber note, and those actors, Steve Carell, Channing Tatum, Mark Ruffalo, they're all fabulous. So that is one movie which I really like. The other is Invictus, and I'm go from individual sport to team sport because we also spoke about Chak De. And again, Invictus is about this sport which is extremely difficult to picturize, to film. So it does that masterfully. And again, in real life, the final of the 1995 Rugby World Cup was a very dull, drab final, as finals generally are. And they did not fall into the trap कि हम थोड़ा so sex up करते हैं and we'll just make it a dramatic final. They stuck to the whole boring rhythm of the final and it just worked pretty well. तो takeaways here being कि आप अगर जो original script को भी जैसे real life में scenes हुए थे, if you stick to that, the movie will turn out to be as dramatic.
Yeah, I think so. Foxcatcher is one film that I have watched, and yeah, you're right. It's a great watch. In fact, when you mention it, I feel like watching it again because it's been a while since I've watched that film. If I had to pick two sports biopics, my first pick would be Moneyball, which is a very unconventional sports biopic because it's not centered around any particular sports star. The movie is based on the life of this guy, Billy Bean, who was the general manager of the Oakland Athletics baseball team. And he's played by Brad Pitt, of course. And he, in the movie, basically he has the task of assembling this new team. And he does that using analytics and very specific baseball statistics, which at the time hadn't been done before, I think. And, the traditional way to select a player would be to look at, their overall performance and how well they would suit the team, which is intuitive, but he proved that that was not necessarily the right way to go about it. And I really like the movie because even though it is essentially about baseball statistics, which obviously I know nothing about, it still manages to excite me. So I think that was fantastic. And in terms of what a sports biopic is, I thought it's a very unconventional one. And the other one I would pick would be I, Tonya, which is about the US figure skater Tonya Harding, who was, at one point this only US woman skater who could do this really complicated jump called the triple axel, where you jump and you spin in the air like around 3 times, and very few, I think only a handful of women have ever been able to do that. And I love how unconventional that story is and the treatment of her life is. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't have any of the tropes that I've seen in so many other biopics. And one trope that I often see is the relationship between the player and their parent, where the parent is sort of like pushing and, like in Dangal, for example, it's like the kids don't really like what the dad is doing. But eventually the picture is that, eventually it's for your good. And eventually the whole relationship between the child and the parent is resolved eventually, because the idea is that, hey, we gave you a good life. But none of that happens in I, Tonya. And again, it's about a sport that I knew nothing about, but it makes you learn about the sport and also question the environment and how it's played at the same time. So that I thought was very cool.
That was good. Yeah, great picks from both of you. Foxcatcher, of course, Mihir works on so many levels. Ek to actors, like you mentioned, Steve Carell and Channing Tatum. One is known for being this eccentric boss in The Office. Another is this hot hunk, and suddenly they are in this Oscar turn sort of movie. And I, Tonya, of course. दो movies जो मैं बोलना चाहूँगा यार, these are Denzel Washington का movies. एक तो is called The Hurricane, in which he plays Reuben Carter. Now, he is falsely implicated in a triple homicide. He gets out of it, but his boxing career is in the backdrop, and it's a look at how he becomes this great civil rights activist. So that's one way you can do a biopic. The another, like Mihir, from individual sport to a team sport, would be Remember the Titans, in which he plays Herman Boone, an African American who is appointed the new coach of a high school football team, and it's a racially integrated team which is playing for the first time. And just for shots value यार, एक बहुत torrential rain में उसका climax shoot हुआ है, and actually उन लोगों ने वो उस रेन में उतना अच्छा फुटबॉल, अमेरिकन फुटबॉल खेला है, एंड दैट्स परफेक्टली शॉट. जो मूवीज हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे बताई हैं यार, रश भी एक और बढ़िया मूवी है यार. रश फोर्ड वर्सेस फरारी, ऑफ कोर्स, बट रश वाज द लास्ट टाइम आई गेव अ डैम अबाउट ऑस्कर्स की यार. And then I heard ki Rush has been snubbed by the Oscars, not even one nomination, and I was like, money, I'm not giving 0 Fs about Oscar ever again if Rush isn't nominated for anything, because, but even that, it borderline glamorizes James Hunt as Chris Hemsworth, but even then he has his frailties और वो सब उनकी दिक्कतें, and Nikki Lauda, of course, this perfectionist who is just hyper competitive, and that's a great movie. Mir, I think एक ही जो strand मुझे समझ में आ रहा है as we wrap up this podcast, it's sporting biopics need not be about Olympic gold medalists or Olympic medalists or world number ones और उनके छोटे से trials, and not to demean the trials and tribulations, but यार injury हो गई, you had to come back. But out of the sport also, like Moneyball is an example. Sporting biopics can be about how jaded these guys are, how rough around the edges these guys are, and even that makes for a great viewing.
Absolutely, and I think again it just goes to show कि हमारे यहाँ culture अभी develop हो रहा है to follow a sport in a certain way, to make movies about sport. It's still a 10-year-old concept in India. So I'm guessing evolve होगा. I just hope कि maturity पहुँचे to a level where we celebrate the career as it is rather than fictionalizing it और बाद में आप थोड़ा उसे खराब कर देते हैं.
Absolutely. So I won't throw it to Shashank, पूरे एपिसोड बोल ही रहा है वो, तो just wrap it up with my usual request कि यार आप लोग stay tuned to Game Time. ये सारा movies भी check out करिए. Off the top of our head काफी अच्छा biopics we've mentioned, even the Hindi ones if you've missed out.
Gold is nice. In passing, I'll say कि यार Saina succeeds at a certain level. कि there's a scene where it is shown कि यार she has inspired this plethora of young Saina wannabes and they want to be badminton players. तो अगर उस हिसाब से if it works, कि suddenly there are parents who are taking their kids to the movie, and even though बहुत ही flimsy है, काफी ज्यादा इसमें substance नहीं है, but अगर उन बच्चों को बैडमिंटन खेलने का मन हो जाए तो it's fine, it works for them. Secondly, मैं यही बोलूंगा कि यार आप गेम टाइम तो सुनते ही रहिए, बट इस हफ्ते
कभी भी टाइम निकाल के 2.5-3 घंटा आप लोग धन धनाधन गोल जरूर देखिए जरूर देखिए. गेम टाइम चाहे मिस भी हो जाए इस बार, वो बाद में देख लीजिएगा. धन धनाधन गोल जरूर देखिए और डू सेंड अस योर कमेंट्स एंड योर व्यूज कि आपको कितना ज्यादा पसंद आएगा. दैट्स अ गिवन, बट कितना ज्यादा वो हमें बताइएगा. मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली स्टे सेफ. आदियोस.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.